So we are
Oh, no.
here for a chat for the outdoor career event here at Maine on Tuesday, February 7th. And we are having a conversation about working with specific populations in the outdoors and what that means. So first, I'm Lauren Jacobs. So I am a lecturer in the University of Maine's Outdoor Leadership Program, our academic program. And I am here with three wonderful humans who are going to introduce themselves. So please tell me what your name is and what organization you work for.
Sure. My name is Terri Mulks, and I'm the director for Camp Susan Curtis.
And I am Willard-Robinson. I am the director at Pine Tree Camp.
Awesome.
And I'm Leblanc, and I'm the program director at the Adaptive Outdoor Education Center.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm really excited to hear the kind of work that you all do, and especially what students at Maine or others, can learn from your experiences in this kind of work. So like, what does it take to get into this kind of work? What are the skills you're looking for? What are the trainings or experiences people get in that kind of work, etc. So first, can you start by just telling me a little bit more about your organization and what you do, what your mission is, who you serve?
Sure. So at Camp Susan Curtis, we provide a transformative camp experience for that nurtures a sense of belonging and self-confidence in Maine children who are facing economic hardship.
Yeah.
And we've been around for next year, we'll be celebrating 50 years.
Wow.
And we were started by a former governor, Ken Curtis, and his wife.
Yeah, wonderful. Could you tell me how you define economic hardship?
Yes, actually, we're going through some adjustments in how we define that right now. We used to do it solely on whether or not a child qualified for USDA, free or reduced lunch at school. And that's gotten very complicated these days because it's now universally free.
In Maine, not
Maine.
everywhere, but
yes,
Maine.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing now is we're asking families if they qualify for Maine Care, which is the healthcare for economically disadvantaged families. And we work with schools as our referral partners and community agencies. And so we're also really talking to them about what, they think their clients are able to do or not do, and sort of using that as our basis for what's going on. So it's the first year we're doing it this way. And we haven't quite started registration yet, but we've got the word out. And so we're excited to see what happens. We think it will broaden our base, actually.
Interesting. I was going to ask about that. Yeah, that's fascinating and a little bit of a tangent, but the research I've done, both for my master's and my PhD, relied on socioeconomic data that came from free and reduced price lunch rates. And so schools and other organizations that use that data now are going to have to find something else.
And we're one of those organizations, we
Yeah,
always use it in our grants and, a lot of times with our donors. And so we were just at the point where a lot of our school referral sources were just like, Terri, we can't tell you because nobody's filling it out. We don't know. So we landed on Maine Care because we feel like that's sort of an easier question to ask. And over the years, 100% of our kids have Maine Care. So we think but like I said, we also think it will broaden our base a little bit too. Yeah.
Cool.
So
and where's the camp located?
We're in Stoneham, Maine. So we're in between sort of Norway and Freiburg, near Bethel in the western part of the state.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yes. So at Pine Tree Camp, we provide an outdoor camping experience for children and adults with special needs and a wide variety of different types of physical and developmental disabilities and needs. And again, we're a nonprofit. We've been around since 1945.
Wow.
Like Susan Curtis, we started as a camp for children with polio in the 40s and have kind of grown from there and changed and developed what we do for our program. But we have a fully accessible camp and everything that you could think of in a traditional summer camp, but it's just, you don't have to think about accessibility. So,
and where is it?
We are located in Rome, Maine, which is in the Belgrade Lakes area. We're on North Pond. So we're close to kind of in between Waterville and Augusta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Allie, can you tell us about AOAC?
Yeah, so the backstory, I'll start with the umbrella. We are the Albiston's Foundation. The Albiston Foundation was created by Anne Marie and Bruce Albiston, initially targeting the aphasia community, which aphasia is a condition that affects somebody's ability to communicate. And Anne-Marie's dad acquired aphasia from a stroke. And when this happened, they realized the lack of resources that our community has and the absolute just kind of disengagement from family and from community for her dad. So they started the Aphasia Center of Maine, and then it grew from there. They realized just how much the limited amount of opportunities for the disability community as a whole in the state of Maine and nationally as well. So they created the Adaptive Outdoor Education Center. And we have 2 locations. One is in Carabasset Valley, a mile from Sugarloaf, and it acts as a fully accessible lodge where people can come and stay. And the only kind of stipulation is that you are associated within the disability community. And in September of 2021, we opened the Brunswick campus based on a need. A lot of the folks that were coming to Carabasset Valley for all of our programming there were in the Southern Maine region. So we have been in Brunswick for a little over a year. And overall, our mission is to support the disability community to participate in adaptive outdoor recreation and education. So thinking about a lot of Maine's wonderful outdoor activities and just making it accessible for all people.
And you do your adaptive climbing here on campus that you made.
Yes, yeah. One of our programs is climbing, and we climb at UMaine Orono with some awesome students that take lead there.
Yeah, it's a really cool program for the also for our students to get experience. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Who are you typically working with as your participants? Are you typically working with individuals, kids, whole families, all of the above? Like who's your sort of your people? Sure, we'll mix it up.
All of the above. We run, our summer camp program runs from June until August. And that is just traditional overnight summer camp, 6-day sessions, 7 of them. And then we were also run 4 weeks of day camp as well for younger children, kind of getting ready to kind of think about coming to camp. And so that we have 3 weeks for adults and we have 4 weeks for children for our overnight camp. And then in the kind of shoulder seasons, which are really just our regular seasons now, we're running year round. We serve family groups. We serve a lot of different organizations that will come in and use our space and will provide the recreational instruction for them. And then during COVID, we pivoted and we did a lot of different programming. And so we created a couple of different programs, our family weekends that we do, as well as what we call Adventure Day Pass programming. So people can come in just for the day at the end of the summer, in the fall, in the spring, and through the winter, and just do different, sign up ahead of time, come in with their whole family. So that's really been nice to be able to have that whole family experience there at camp, even especially for some of our campers who have been coming for 20 and 30 years. Their families just don't have that grasp of what actually happens when they drop. They know it's great. They know they love them. They love camp. But to have them all participate in that multi-generational thing is so amazing to work with. So we've been doing a lot of that. And that's kind of how we've decided to stretch out our seasons and go year round now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I had some students help with an ice fishing family day.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So in the winter, ice fishing, snowshoeing, and we can still get out on. We have about 5 miles of accessible trails on site, and so we're able to get out and do all that stuff. And then in the spring and summer and the fall, we still do kayaking, boating, fishing, whatever we're gonna adaptive bikes. So
yeah, wonderful, awesome. And you're primarily working with kids at the camps, but how are families sort of wrapped in at any point?
Definitely. We wrap in families and case managers and schools and, we're very holistic. So as far as what's going on with a kid, that's, who we're talking to and what we're looking at. But our primary focus is on our kids coming to camp for 10 days and having just an awesome experience while they're there. 70% of our kids return year after year. So it's a multi-year experience. And what we're finding currently is that as they're getting older and either becoming our staff members or moving out into the world, we are then helping them with the college and career focus as well. So this is how you get a scholarship. This is how you fill out a college application. We take them to college campuses, you know, so they see that when they're in our leadership development program. So yeah, it's getting a lot broader at this point. They just need a lot more support. And so, you know, they trust our staff. A lot of them have come to us for 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
So it's a place where they feel really comfortable asking for help. Yeah.
Very special. And Allie, are you working with individuals, families, everybody?
All of the above. We kind of tap into, so our programming, an individual, say it's a climbing session, an individual could sign up to go and climb at Maine Orono, or it could be a person with a disability and their sibling. So we're looping in families as well. So individuals, families, and then we tap into working with schools, whether they come to our facility in Brunswick or Carrabassett Valley, or meet us at a sailing program, tapping into the school programs. And then also a lot of the participants are from community support in group homes as well. So really tapping into all layers.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm hearing like individuals and families, but also any state associated supports, community organizational supports, and then schools, of course.
Yeah, I think in the state, especially we're lucky at Maine, but I think all of us kind of are interconnected as nonprofits. We all, you know, work with a lot of the same folks and refer people out. There's definitely people for everything.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people and plenty of business for us to go around and so many things for us to do, but it's nice to that. I think we all kind of work together to think about that and how we can
sometimes
support
even
one
in
another.
our camp community, like I've sent kids to Dawn.
Yeah,
Because
and I've done the same.
yeah, because we've had kids, you know, it could be siblings, or we have kids that are like on the autism spectrum that sort of grow out of our programs. And so I'll just call Dawn and be like, I have this kid that loves camp, you know, and so it's a nice, the nonprofit community is just so great in Maine because there are places, you know, especially when you're working with anybody who's facing hardship, to be able to find those other places that they can go and have a successful experience.
Right. Yeah,
For sure.
awesome. I'm gonna unpin Allie. Actually, I just realized we're very small, and which is fine, but we don't need you to be pinned anymore because we're not doing the big on the screen thing. So one of the questions, you know, because this is part of our career event, our outdoor recreation leadership career event, and so one of the things that, you know, students ask us a lot is, you know, sort of, what is like the career trajectory for the kind of work? And even if there isn't a trajectory, but, you know, do people start as volunteers? Is there seasonal staff? Is there eventually, you know, year-round positions in some work? You know, sort of what is sort of the entry point to this kind of work? So I'll start with Allie. Do you all use volunteers? Do you use paid staff, a mix of everything?
Yeah, so we are a small but mighty crew. We have 3 full-time staff. Myself, Zach is our community outreach director. Kayla is the director. The founders and Marie and Bruce are super involved. And then we have a part-time alpine ski coach, Terri. So just a small crew for what we do, but we're able to do it because of the volunteer support. And also the collaboration with other organizations. So say we're going, I'll do sailing instead of climbing. But say we're sailing with Sail Maine, Zach is taking lead on that program. But then in each boat, we have volunteers for crew and also skippers. So people taking their sailing expertise and mixing it in with the disability community is how we are able to run our programs, whether it's the outdoor activity or education experience or the disability experience. We kind of take whatever is missing and fill in the gaps for any volunteers that are interested in participating in our programs, and also organizations too. Of Sail Maine is a great example of, they have phenomenal sailing programs, and we want sailing to be accessible to the adaptive community. So we are like, hey, can we bring the disability element and the adaptive element. So everybody's included in this experience, and the organizations that are willing and able to do it, it makes for phenomenal programming.
Yeah, wonderful. So a lot of collaboration with existing organizations. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. What about Pine Tree?
Yeah, we hire a full team in the summer. So we always are looking for students that want to get that full summer experience. And then in the off season, we have a part-time staff, so we can guarantee them some hours every month to work in our off season programming. And then we're always looking, volunteers are always so helpful to come in and just do a little here and a little there, and internships are great. We're able to take people on all summer long. Actually, I could take people on all year long, but we have a 6-person year-round team of us that work. And then I have a bunch of people that are kind of auxiliary that work both full-time in the summer and then part-time in the off season for us. So yeah, it kind of takes a whole group to really keep everything going. And but yeah, and then, collaborating with other organizations, but it's definitely a place if someone's looking to get some really great broad-based experience.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have a 5-member year-round team, and that's relatively new for us. We used to be about 3.5. And so we have an office in Portland, and most of the team that works there doesn't really have like direct access at camp. It's primarily our fundraising team that's working there. And then I'm at camp from May to October, and we hire an entire seasonal team that's working at camp. So we have a leadership team, which is great for like outdoor rec students, anybody that's really looking to sort of figure out like what that administrative step is into the role. And then we have a lot of what we call camp leaders, which is our cabin and program staff who are living with the kids and running the programs. And then we also do stuff and do internships for things like our food service, our health and wellness. We now have a full-time social worker on staff, and we have behavioral specialists that are backing him up on a regular basis. So that's a great sort of new way to, to figure out what you want to do. And we have a facilities team, as well. So there's really, what's nice about camp is it's just so wide ranging, and there's so many different pieces of it that you can like figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
So I forgot to say we're part of camp is one program of a bigger organization that I didn't mention.
I know you mentioned it now.
Terri said it good. I'm going to just jump in after Terri reminded me, but we are we're one program of the Pine Tree Society, which is a bigger organization that serves people all across the state. And we have a variety of different programs from speech and OT. We have a developmental preschool program. We have a bunch of different adult day programs for people with intellectual disability. And so camp is always a great stepping stone too for getting into some of those positions as well. So
that's
thank you, Terri. And we do have a team of people that, thank goodness, raise money for us and do the development side of things and the reckoning and that piece of it. So
that
makes my job easier.
That piece is huge for us because all of our kids come tuition free.
Same for us.
And if I had to focus on that as well as like all the other 1,000,006 things I have to focus on, that would not be happening.
Big piece of what Terri and I do too, and is doing that, like being out there, the face of camp and the face of our program. But luckily we have people that help us with those big events because it does cost a lot. And same thing. Most people come tuition free because they're in that social and economic.
That's like the ongoing thing of a nonprofit.
And then when people say, "Oh, you don't have," I'm like, but there's a team of us, which is great.
People are like, "What are you doing the rest of the year?" I'm like, "Well,
raise the money."
Yes, we need to raise the money so this can actually happen.
So I was one of those young people who started my outdoor career in seasonal work. So I did the summer camp thing for in high school and college summers. And I know I saw firsthand the amazing skills you can get and build in seasonal work, whether it's summer camp or other seasonal work, or even like just post-graduation from college, sort of exploring different avenues in different seasons. But I think sometimes when you haven't done that as a student, it can be hard to sort of see where seasonal work can serve you in other areas.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I would love for you to share with me is, what are your employees taking with them besides the fun? Because summer camp and going sailing and
Mhm.
skiing, like this stuff is fun.
Mhm.
But besides this, the fun, what skills are then do you see are transferable into other careers or other pathways? Yeah.
I was just talking to some education majors, here today, and one of the things, we have a lot of teachers on our staff team, and one of the things we hear from them over and over is, I'm so glad I work at camp because that's my classroom management. Like, because you're making those individual connections at camp, and because we have a pretty defined behavior management system,
Mhm.
they can take lots of those pieces and integrate it into their classroom. So we hear a lot of that. We do a lot of like social work and psychology, what we call at Camp Mesh, which is mental, emotional, and social health. And so those go into so many different fields. I myself am not a recreation person. I'm a social worker as well. And started with seasonal work in college. Didn't know that being a camp director was even like a thing that I could do. But would go and have year-round jobs, but then quit them right before the summer so that I could like go back to camp. So finally focused and made it into a career, which we do see, a lot of people, but the seasonal stuff, communication, you have to live with other people. That's hard. Working with kids 24/7, that's patience and stamina and just
Putting
others.
your needs
Yeah,
second, which is a huge thing.
which is a huge piece, especially if you work for a nonprofit, right? So those are things that are, I think people just walk away with, and you don't realize it that first time,
No.
that you're going to be there, but then you go out into the real world again, and you're like, well, camp taught me that. Yeah.
I also think that people don't really always truly see like the leadership qualities that are so important at camp, just putting yourself out there and not being intimidated to talk to total strangers and kind of building a team and those pieces that happen organically at camp and how it all works. But I always say that is my job, to grow professionals that I truly feel that is that you can't get an experience like a summer camp experience anywhere else.
If you don't know how to think on your feet before you go into the camp experience, you will
You learn.
after the third day. You got it.
You gotta act quick and think and trust your instincts.
Yes, trust your instincts.
But yeah, and I think that all of us kind of find our way sometimes into that, like piecing together seasonal work. My background is originally in therapeutic rec, and then I went into teaching and I worked in early intervention for a long time, and then found my way back to camping, which has been what I really wanted to do. It's you work in a summer camp, you're like, how do you get to be a director? You don't really think that in your head, but it's always in the back of your brain. But there are a lot of ways to be able to do that, and you just have to be patient with it, I think, sometimes. And I think sometimes we get really attached to one program, and I try to tell a lot of times people that really want to kind of wait for me to retire or whatever. You have to like go try somewhere. I mean, I ran a Girl Scout camp for 6 summers, and that was a really great experience to have a different organization and a different lens. And I brought my own special needs background into that, and adaptive rec into that part of it, which they don't usually think about. And that was early in the, early 90s, and when it was still kind of coming around. So I think any of that experience is great, and to try different things is really amazing too. We get really attached to one thing.
So spread it out.
Spread them all. Get out there, do a bunch of different.
Really find your fit, because there's so much out there, and sometimes you're very, tunnel vision with the place that you are and the people that you work with, but there's a lot of different ways to get into this work on a, year-round, full-time basis.
Especially in Maine, we have an amazing.
We really do. We have incredible.
So many summer camps, and I believe we have the highest per capita number of nonprofits in the
yes, we
country.
do.
So we have a lot of this kind of work.
Right.
Allie, what do you think volunteers and staff take with them as skills when they do work with you?
Yeah, so many. We don't jump in exactly like summer camp style, but certainly just the experience of a lot of our volunteers come into our programming with the experience of the outdoor activity. For instance, they are they're alpine skiers and they really enjoy alpine skiing, but have not worked with the disability community. So they're taking a skill set that they already have and are just expanding it and seeing it through a different lens of how it's really not rocket science to become inclusive and to include the disability community in all aspects of life. It takes a whole lot of just patience and kindness and adaptability and creativity. And I think that's gained really easily. And I think people kind of stick with it because they see the joy, the simple joy of that they're able to provide our participants that are getting to have this alpine skiing experience that without AOEC, they wouldn't have had that opportunity. And so many other outdoor recreation activities that the folks without disabilities often take for granted because they're so much more readily accessible. So many, many things, and I would echo a lot of the things that has already been said.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, you know, in our outdoor leadership program here, inclusion is one of the threads that we try to thread through everything we do. And it's actually covered specifically in a couple courses, but we also try to sort of thread it throughout our program. But I also think, and I'm saying this from what I see from students, but also like my own personal experience, is that when you are starting to or initially diving into working with a special population or a specific population, it can be kind of nerve-wracking if you've never done it before. And you know, there's a lot of questions. Do I have the skills? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the ability? And so my next question, really my final question is, what advice would you give to someone embarking on this kind of work when they're maybe a little bit tentative or a little bit nervous about working with a specific population?
I think jump right in. If you really want to gain the experience, you will. And it's about making those personal connections with campers or participants, anybody that you're working with. And that once you do that and make that connection, the rest of it just comes. If you have, like I was saying, you know, if your passion is kind of, you know, kayaking, like you're going to be able to translate that and support it. But I think it's for us, it's really, I always say, I don't need you to have a ton of experience. I just want you to have the desire to learn and the interest in working with the group of folks that we're working with. And that everything else will come, you know, the rest of it, we can train you how to be an archery specialist, how to do first aid and CPR, but the rest, it's just that want to do it. And I think putting yourself and just taking that jump and that leap.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Is the most important piece.
Yeah.
And connecting.
Yeah.
Making connections.
Making connections.
Personal connections. Throw yourself in and make connections.
Yeah.
Because that's where the magic happens. It's about you working with a person. And then, you know, I have this, I'm so excited about kayaking, and then they are too. And then we find out there are other things that we have in common. And the rest of the pieces always just go away.
Yeah.
Like, you know, check all the other things that are always a barrier to people at the door is what I always say. And just bring yourself.
Just bring yourself. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Allie, what would you say to someone embarking on this that might be a little nervous about it?
Yeah, also jump right in. I think even if you are going to school, my background, I'm an occupational therapist, so I have a decent amount of knowledge with the disability community. But I scratch a lot of that knowledge when I'm meeting a person for the first time, because they know themselves the best, and they're going to be the ones that teach you so much more than a book ever would. So I just think the more you can dip your toes in and just start to just gain the confidence to just go out and try with whatever knowledge you have, even if it's bare bones. I think that's just the starting point, because you're really going to learn from the participants and from the people that you're working with. There's a saying of just, if you know somebody with autism, you know one person with autism. I think a lot of the times we try to go into it of just like, okay, maybe I'm working with somebody who has acquired a stroke, and I need to know all this information about stroke. No, you don't. And if you're interested specifically with us, we oftentimes the diagnosis information isn't, always is not the first piece of information that we share with you, because telling you that a person has autism really isn't that helpful, because it differs so much. So we're going to tell you, yeah, this person may have autism, but here are 3 things that we know about this person that will really help them with their horse riding experience today. And this is what you're going to focus on. So specifically at AOEC, we don't expect that you come in with all the knowledge and experience and expertise. We're going to give you the information that you need. And then you'll learn so much from just our participants and families.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I
Thank
love it
you.
when people want to throw an IEP at you. You're like, you want their individual budget? No, I don't
need
I
that.
don't need that. I just want you to tell me what are your goals and hopes for them to get out of this experience.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to them and then we'll figure it out from there.
Because I think that's also important too. We have some regular volunteers that work with the same participant, and their tips and tricks may not work for me or
Right.
from our relationship based on like my personality and my relationship. So yeah, there's no script.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hire our staff, we tell them that we hire them for compassion, because we can't teach the kindness piece, which is really what our kids need. But we can teach you all the other things that go along, you know, with that, with the skills piece. And we also encourage our staff to make mistakes. Like, I think part of that nervousness when you're going into something is, you know, this is already like a vulnerable population or whatever. What if I make a mistake? But that's how we best learn. And our kids respect that. We teach our staff how to recover from that and just, you know, move on to the next thing. And especially in this world where perfectionism is like a big thing right now, especially with our college students, we're seeing it a lot. It's important, and camp will support you to make those mistakes and be able to move forward. So we like to model that for our kids. And I think that's just, don't be afraid, get in there, jump in, just like everybody else said, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
And if you find that it's not amazing for you, go jump into something else, because all of those experiences make a difference.
Yeah. I sometimes will tell students, finding out what you don't want to do
Yes.
is just as important as
Huge.
finding out what you want.
Right.
You try something for summer and you're like, that's not for me. Great. You figured it out.
Right.
Like, that's awesome.
I
Right.
would say, I'm gonna go back in the classroom. Like,
Right.
I loved it then, but I'm like, that's not what I wanted to create
Right.
anymore. So, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, this was super helpful and really interesting for me. I love connecting. I love thinking back to my own summer camp days and also just connecting with organizations around the state. You know, UMaine has a big service to state purpose. That's like, because we're the land grant institution, that's one of our jobs. And so I love hearing about ways like, oh, how could we connect with what great work is already happening in the state? So
There's a lot of good stuff out
There
there.
really is. We're
Yeah.
lucky where we are. Really.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
everybody.
Us. It's been
Awesome.
great.
And
Thanks.
we'll get this
Thank
posted.
you.
online. Thanks, Allie.
Yeah.
Bye, Ally.